Paranormal Buzz Radio is proud to present Girls vs. Ghost Media's Spoopy Talk with Madison Smith from Madison Paranormal. You can find Spoopy Talk every other Sunday, 6 Eastern, 5 Central, right here, live on Paranormal Buzz Radio. Be sure to join in the live interactive chat by going to Spreaker.com or downloading the Spreaker app for all devices.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Take two, everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Madison Smith. I'd like to welcome you all to Spoopy Talk with Maddie. Tonight's show, we will be chatting with two awesome ladies who have in the past year purchased a haunted location in Tennessee. So please give a very spoopy welcome to Miranda Young and Kris Sumner. Welcome to Spoopy Talk. And how are you both doing?
Hey, Madison, doing very well tonight. How are you?
Not too bad. And yourself?
Doing great.
Hey, Madison, thank you for having us on.
Yeah, it's going to be a pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. We're excited about this.
So am I, don't worry. All right. So, how about we get started with everyone telling us a little bit about themselves, you know?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Kris Sumner, and I'm the founder of Soul Sisters Paranormal. And I've actually been in the paranormal field since about 2013. Really officially in 2014 is when we formed Soul Sisters Paranormal. And it's an all-female group made up of myself and my twin sister and our younger sister. And a couple years ago, we had the pleasure of meeting Miranda Young from Ghost Biker.
Yeah, and of course, I'm Miranda Young. I'm better known as the Ghost Biker, and I travel around the country on my motorcycle to haunted and historic locations. And I've been investigating the paranormal since a little bit over 13 years now. So yeah, Dr. Sumner and I became friends through the paranormal, and what better awesome thing to do than create a business with your best friend?
Absolutely.
All right. And why don't we start introducing the building that you have?
Sure, we'd love to. So kind of how this got started is, last year, Miranda and I, like we said, we met about 3 years ago, and we always kind of kicked around the idea of forming a partnership and actually opening a haunted location. And so it really presented itself last year with this historic Scott County jail located in Huntsville, Tennessee. And it was an interesting endeavor for me because I'm obviously from Florida, but Miranda knows so much about the history of this building. So we were able to approach the town of Huntsville and ask them if we could start a museum as well as essentially a paranormal research center inside this jail. So I'll let Miranda tell a little bit about the jail, but what we decided to do is we formed a company called History, Highways, and Haunts. And so what we're going to do with that is, really once we get started with the historic Scott County jail, we want to really open our services up to other locations to help them do what we're doing here at the jail. But I'll let Miranda tell a little bit about the history since this is where she's from.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Scott County, and the jail's always been, a part of my history as long as I've been there. But the jail was built in 1904, and it was in operation until 2005. It officially closed the doors in 2008, and it sat abandoned from 2008 until 2017, when the town of Huntsville went to Scott County, and they ended up taking the jail on. They got a historical and tourism grant for it. Mm-hmm. And they went in and refreshed things up, put windows in, added heating and air, and really refreshed the place. It still continued to sit vacant until we came along in 2021 and opened the museum in September. The jail has quite an amazing history. Everything from the early prisoners, which were moonshiners, to we've got sheriffs who were killed on the property. We have 7 inmates who were lynched. They were either killed by the state due to their crimes, or they had or they were taken out via mountain justice. And we've got a couple really interesting stories on that, and several of the spirits who haunt that location that we believe they were ones who were taken out through mountain justice. And then also, just as time went on, we've had sheriffs. We've had 14 sheriffs who have had an end of watch there at the jail. But really just an amazing, interesting history. And we're finding out new stories every day and getting a lot of evidence from our paranormal investigators who have come in that's really been able to align with this history that we're finding out.
That's very cool. Do you know why the jail's shut down?
It actually shut down due to overcrowding. It's a small county jail. It was built to hold 50 inmates during times of overcrowding. There were instances where there were over 150 people in the jail. So that's how overcrowded it was in some of these instances. So it really, the county needed a new location to house its inmates. So they attempted to shut it down one time in the 1960s, and they built another facility that they were going to use as a jail in the 1960s, and inmates started escaping from that new facility. So they moved everybody back to the jail that we're currently in, and they used it for another 30 years. So it really shut down due to overcrowding, and the fire marshal came in and said there were some flaws with the building, escape routes and all of that. It wasn't really safe to house that many inmates. But it's just a great little jail. As Miranda said, it's got amazing history, not just for the paranormal stuff, but also from the historical side of things. And I think that's what's really interesting about what we've done. We've been able to go in and create a historical museum that people can walk through during the day and learn about Scott County and learn about the jail and crime and punishment and law enforcement. But then on the flip side, you have those paranormal enthusiasts that can come in and actually get some very compelling evidence from this location. So we're very excited to offer both sides of the spectrum with regard to history and paranormal.
Yeah, and if you've seen what the jail looks like, I mean, it's a very cool looking structure. I mean, it looks like a little castle, and it was very primitive up until they got the tourism grant. A lot of the windows up until around the late 80s, early 90s were actually they were open. The prisoners were exposed to the elements, the heat and the cool. And so we've got some pretty harsh winters and some pretty hot summers. So it was a very uncomfortable location. So they were exposed through the bars. They ended up essentially putting like plexiglass type plastic over the windows. And they had some cheaper windows down in the administrative area. But it was just a very rough and harsh environment for the prisoners. So as Dr. Sumner said, with the fire marshal, with with some of the different elements in this building, it was pretty rough. And so, but it adds to a very unique look and a very cool fixture there in the community, because the jail is 3 levels. And so on the first level is where the original jailer's quarters was. So up until the 70s, we had full families who lived inside that bottom level of the jail. If your husband was the sheriff, you were typically the cook, and you cooked for all the prisoners as well as your kids grew up in there. And so a lot of the time you cooked for your kids' friends, and so the downstairs part was the living quarters. And then the second level is where the trustees, the more trusted inmates, there are 3 cells inside of there that would house, it's supposed to be housing 10 inmates in there. They had 10 beds, but it wouldn't be uncommon to have at least 15 inmates in there, in those rooms. And also there's a second floor kitchen up there. There was a fire back in 1922, and so it damaged the second level. And so instead of, tearing that down, they actually decided to build the third level on top of that, which is the maximum security level. So that's where the smaller cells are that would house anywhere from supposed to be 2 to 4 inmates, but those could be crowded. So as Christy said, it was supposed to just be 50 inmates to 1 jailer, but it could be upwards to 1 jailer, and that's quite a bit when you get in that little small facility like that.
Yeah. And then, do you know any of their stories, per se?
We do. Yeah, absolutely. We do. As Miranda said, it's got a very robust history starting in 1904. But, for example, one of the sheriffs that was killed there, R.D. Ellis, he was killed in August of 1925. And so he was actually bringing in a moonshiner that he had just arrested. He was bringing him into the jail facility, and he was ambushed from behind and shot and killed. His body was taken into the jail, and he was, prepared for burial inside the jail. And so that's a very interesting story, just the whole lineage of that how that happened. And so, we do believe that his spirit is there. Everything from inmates who were there because they killed their wives or girlfriends or attempted to kill somebody, moonshiners, in the 80s, the marijuana epidemic. We had a lot of people in there for running marijuana and other drugs. So throughout the history, there's a lot of stories. And the interesting thing about it is we've been able to get a hold of a lot of newspaper articles that we have displayed everywhere from the R.D. Ellis story up until last year. So we've got so many different things that we have there on display. And so just running through all of those stories, would take an all-night endeavor. But we think that the history behind it, just the building itself, but also the events that have occurred there, have really led to some interesting paranormal phenomena.
Yeah, when you think about, my mic muted.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, your internet's going out a little bit, Miranda.
Sorry about that. You're in the middle of a winter storm here in Tennessee, and so hopefully but when you think about it being open for 100 years, that's in there. And so we're really getting a lot, and that's what's been really interesting about the investigators that have come in, is you can come in and spend an entire night trying to speak, to one particular incident that happened in there, but there's so many that, people are just getting so many interesting things, and we're telling them, it's like, if you get a word, because the spirits in this location, they absolutely love using tools like the Ovilus, the spirit box, anything where they can use words. They're very intelligent and they're very aware. And so a lot of the people who come in here, we tell them, we're like, if you get something that seems a little off or doesn't seem like it makes sense, make note of that, because we've been able to really put together some interesting stories. They'll talk about what you're wearing. They'll talk about the clothes the articles that we have on the wall. They'll actually give you words from the newspaper articles before you read them. It's really interesting. And so they're very intelligent and very aware, and they really seem like they want to let us know that they're aware and really share their stories with us.
That seems really cool. Like how they can. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it is. It is very cool. As Miranda said, they're very intelligent. And what's also interesting is that the reports of the hauntings in this facility didn't just start when it closed. So after we opened, we actually had deputies and jailers come to us or email us and say, listen, I don't believe in this, but when I worked there, the elevator would start running on its own at night. We would hear footsteps running through the hallways at night to the point where we would call an emergency head count to make sure that inmates weren't trying to escape. There was one instance where a dispatch lady had gotten into the elevator by herself at night, and a man whispered in her ear, and she never rode the elevator again. So to have, sworn law enforcement officials telling us that these things happened, even though they really truly don't believe in it, to us is extremely compelling. And so since we've opened, we've been able to corroborate some of those things. We hear footsteps all the time. We hear doors moving. We hear men speaking, even though Miranda and I are in there by ourselves. So it is a very cool thing to know that it's not just when it closed, that these spirits have been active for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've even had reports with some of the different inmates and stuff that were in there, as well as the mayor who had took over the location. We've had reports that some of the different, at least on 3 occasions, that there were prisoners that wanted to actually be transferred to Brushy Mountain, because see, typically the inmate that was in this location, they were in there for about 18 months, typically anywhere from a few days to 18 months. And so they would be in there in between sentencing. So when they would go and they would get their sentencing, usually they would either be shipped off to Nashville or they would be shipped off to Brushy Mountain State Prison, which both of those locations were very rough prisons, especially Brushy Mountain. And, he was often talk about how there were people who were in there that they would be so spooked, or that the inmate on inmate violence could be so bad that they actually wanted to be transferred on to Brushy.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I forgot what I was gonna say, honestly. I had such a big thing to say, and then I just forgot. Oh yeah, I would, yeah.
Well, we had a really interesting story from the very last jailer who worked in there. So essentially in 2005, the fire marshal came in at 8:00 on a Friday night, and he's like, okay, shutting it down, got to get the prisoners out. So people had to really scramble to get the prisoners out and get them shipped to different locations, different facilities in the Tri-County area. And so the local jailer, he said that, so of course he was in there from 2005 to 2008 when they didn't necessarily have any prisoners inside. And he talked on several occasions about being chased off the 3rd floor by a shadow figure. And so when he came back for the location after we had opened it as a museum, he took us up there to kind of share his story. And you could visibly see the hair on the back of his neck standing up. He was quite uncomfortable going up to that 3rd level. And that's something that we often get reports from other investigators. We've actually seen ourselves a shadow figure on the 2nd floor. And we've had some different shadow type activity on that 3rd floor when Dr. Sumner and I have been in there investigating. Different teams have seen light anomalies up there. One particular night when we were doing a flashlight tour, we were sitting downstairs on the 1st level waiting on everyone to come in. And next thing you know, you hear that they come in and they're like, were you all up on the 2nd and 3rd floor? And we're like, no, we've been sitting down here waiting. And so they were sitting in their car, and one of the ladies just happened to look up and they saw somebody run past the windows on the 2nd floor. And right about that same time, when she said, did you see that? The other lady saw someone run by on the 3rd floor. And so they saw him run past the windows. And there would have been no way that we could have done it and gotten back down to the 1st level when they saw it happen. And so the flashlight tours and stuff actually turned out to be pretty active just in and of themselves when we're not even actively investigating. So a lot of people have seen a lot of shadow activity there on those 2nd and 3rd level floors.
Do you think that there's a reason to it, possibly?
I just think that they have a lot of stories to tell, honestly. I do think that Artie Ellis the sheriff who was shot outside the door. I do think that he has a very big presence. I think Jerome Boyd and Harvey Winchester, who were two inmates who were taken out and lynched by a mob, I think they're there as well. But the interesting thing about this jail is it's made of sandstone. It sits directly beside a tributary of the river there. So there's a water element as well as a Native American influence on the land also. So I think it's really a trifecta of elements that contribute, that we all know contribute to hauntings. And I think it just really, confines that energy into this sandstone building. And I think that since we've come in, we have really approached it from the standpoint of when we go in, we're speaking to them all the time. Like, good morning, how you doing? Anybody want to talk to us today? Even just during the day, business hours. And I think that they're willing to tell their stories to us and to the investigators who are investigating the location. And so I think that they're just happy to have somebody in there to have life again to communicate with. And, that's what I've been operating on the theory of, that they're just willing to talk now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and R.D. Ellis, the interesting thing about that is the fact that it's actually still one of Scott County's unsolved murders, is the fact, where he was shot. So when he was bringing this moonshiner in back in 1925, he was actually shot back from behind in the wooded area and shot ambush style. And so either the moonshining community knew who it was and they just did a really good job keeping their mouth shut, or truly nobody knew who it was. But it was interesting. The police chief in the neighboring town of Oneida had been shot just before that, and he was also bringing in a moonshiner. So it could be one of those things. But for me personally, I feel like Sheriff Ellis helps us to watch the jail. I feel like he likes what we've done with it, and that he helps us kind of keep some of the more ornery spirits in line there by continuing his watch and his stance on law and order. I feel like he kind of helps us.
That's sweet, man. I love that.
He really has kind of shown himself during some of the different paranormal investigations. One of the first couple teams that was there, actually the first team that was there the first night, they did actually capture some interesting words. That night they captured RD, they captured Richard, Ellis, Sheriff, and Murdered. After that first night of investigating, we always have somebody on site. We lock ourselves in our office. We're on site but out of sight, and we do stay on the property. And so after the first team had left, I was actually going up to lock up, and I was coming out of the gift shop. And as I was coming out, I hear this really deep voiced hum. And I thought that maybe it was a car or something on the road. I mean, it's a pretty quiet area, so you don't really have a lot of traffic, especially not at 3:30 in the morning. And so I paused, and all of a sudden it clears its throat and continued humming. And so it went on for about 6 seconds, which in paranormal time is quite a bit of time. And so I went back in to the office there to get my stuff to leave, because I was actually, I don't get creeped out, but I was a little bit shook up just because it was so audible. And as I was getting ready to leave, we have a camera in there in the gift shop. And so we captured two voices on there, two male voices. One of them that said, there she is. And the next said, not so loud next time. And so I thought that really cool. I went back and I told Kris, I called her on my way home that night, and I'm like, you need to check the security footage to see if we were able to capture that hum. And so it was far enough away we weren't able to capture that, but she heard those two voices directly after. And I feel they were intelligent, that they were actually acknowledging the fact there I was, and telling the other spirit, maybe you shouldn't hum so loud next. But get a lot of hits to religious music, and Sheriff Ellis, he was a Baptist preacher, so it just makes sense. It makes sense why when we're capturing some of these things, we're able to really tie them to either the lifestyle or the history or the story of some of these spirits. Of course, we've got a lot more researching to do, but we're really starting to see a lot of that through some of the evidence that the investigators have found.
Yeah. And what's like the best thing that you have seen or heard in the jail?
Well, the interesting thing that we've captured, as Miranda said, we just by us being in there, the nature of us being in there, we've heard audible male voices, we've heard footsteps. I think one of the most compelling pieces of evidence was captured by a team called RKB Paranormal, and there is just two gentlemen on this team. They both have a history of corrections officers and law enforcement. So they were upstairs on the second floor, just really using some of that slang from law enforcement, and so they thought that, well, they were upstairs in the second floor kitchen, and the REM pod started going off, the EDI box started going off. At the same time, they thought they heard a woman say help in the alcove there on the second floor. So they grabbed their camera and they panned their camera into that alcove, and immediately after that, they panned the camera. One of the pictures on the wall, it looked like something grabbed it by the top left corner and flung it about 4.5 feet to the right. And now, in full disclosure, we've had things fall off the wall before because there are certain walls we can't drill into, so they're just held up by Velcro. And so they'll fall straight down and over. But this one, when you slowed it down, you can actually see, well, a couple of things happen. You can see I'm sorry, somebody's typing. You can see somebody, you can see a shadow figure kind of walk through, then you see an orb come down, and then you see the picture start to flip, and it looks like a shadow arm is pushing the picture. And so it's a very, very compelling piece of evidence for us.
Yeah. And then do you think it was more of, hey, I'm here, or more of a, I don't like you being here kind of thing?
No, it was a hey, I'm here type of a situation. Okay. We've never felt anything that is malicious or threatening in any way. There was one instance where Miranda and I were up there and we did capture a male's voice saying, you girls are going to die. But we think it was just them talking like inmates, right? There's never been a time where we felt anything that was threatening to us, that we would be harmed in any way. In fact, I really think that they enjoy us going up and talking to them and really getting to know their stories, because as Miranda said, we've got from the responses that we've gotten and from responses of other paranormal investigative teams, we've been able to actually cross-reference the historical narrative with the paranormal evidence. And so we're really using this as a paranormal research center, if you will, to really couple that history with the paranormal.
It's nice to know that they acknowledge you and they're not aggressive in any way. They know that you're trying to help them and just be there kind of thing. I just think that that's sweet.
Yeah, it's a very interesting place.
Yeah, and the fact that it sat abandoned for so long, and it just sat quiet, and it really got into it was in a very harsh state before they fixed it up. But even setting from that 2017 to 2021, it had gotten in a pretty rough state. And so, just having folks come in on a daily basis that are acknowledging these spirits and their stories, I think that's made a world of difference. And Dr. Sumner and I, in the very beginning, we took probably about 2 to 3 weeks of just going in and really talking to them and trying to acknowledge what we were doing and what we were planning to do, just so, all of a sudden one day, you didn't have people coming in, and talking to them and asking them to do things. We really took a lot of time in trying to let them know what we were trying to do.
And do you think you guys helping the place has affected the paranormal aspect of it?
I think so. It, like I said, they're very intelligent, and just for me, I investigate. Most of the locations that I investigate are locations that aren't overly investigated. And it's something that takes a lot of time. When you go into some of these places, trying to essentially, not really teach the spirits, but essentially, assure them and let them know what you're doing. These spirits, from the very beginning, they wanted to talk. It's like they get excited whenever we go on to a certain level and we're playing music and doing certain things. Activity on certain things that we do, So it's one of those things that, I think it has. Personally, I think it has affected it.
And I think, and just follow up on that question, I think the fact that we have gone in with the actual respect of what we feel is respectfulness of the place itself. We have been very conscious of the articles that we're putting up on the wall. So we're just not highlighting the building, even though the building itself is a historical artifact. We're actually putting stories about the county, about the jail, about the jailers, about the inmates up on the wall, and just acknowledging that full scope, that full spectrum of history. And so I think they're very responsive to that. And like I said, we've highlighted Artie Ellis. So it could be the fact that we're acknowledging him and his entire story. We're acknowledging these inmates. We're acknowledging some of the crimes that have happened in the county. And I think that full acknowledgement has just really shown them that we're not just in here to open the door and allow people just to walk through the building. We want it to be a full experience, the historical story of the county. And I think that's the reason why some of these spirits are very receptive to what we're doing, because we're telling the full story, not just bits and pieces of the building.
And also, too, one of the things is we don't go in and, there's a lot of conspiracy and a lot of quote unquote stories about what happened with some of these inmates. With what we're putting up in the jail, we really stick to the newspaper, the documented side of things with these stories. And so what we do is we go in and we put these stories up. And then, of course, we may have family members or somebody that comes in and gives us more details, but we really stick to the historical story rather than going in necessarily to conspiracy and hearsay about some of these stories.
Yeah, and that's really cool that you guys are sticking to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would be respectful of that. I wouldn't want my story getting mixed up.
And I think you have to
be,
and
it's easy
right?
to do.
Yeah, and you have to be. I think every person who is a paranormal investigator, I think the true paranormal investigators, such as yourself and others we've met in the community, they understand what we're trying to do there. And I think that we've been really well received, both from the location standpoint, but also from the historical standpoint, that we're really trying to highlight both sides of it. So again, thank you for that. But I think it's necessary in a location like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really like that you guys are doing it, because I know a lot of places, they just go with whatever they hear kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They'll hear something like a rumor, and they're like, oh, yeah, that's a fact now. You're welcome, guys.
Yeah, and that happens, I think, more than what people want to acknowledge, and I think essentially leads to tulpas and creating your own hauntings and those type of things as well. It's easy for a story to be said and then be passed along and it not even be something that actually happened in that location. I think it happens more than what people realize. And so it's a hard job. And I have a lot of respect for location owners after going into this endeavor, because you have to spend so much time researching if you want to get it right. And, we still have so much more time that we need to spend talking to people and spend in the archives gathering these stories. Because again, you have hundreds, if not thousands of people who were through the doors of this location over that 100-year period. And so just trying to get those stories out there, but also do it accurately it's a big job.
Yeah. And I really respect what you're doing. So thank you for doing what you're doing, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Madison.
you, Madison.
A round of applause for everyone, please.
You've got to get over here and check it out. I know it's a little bit of a drive for you, but we'd love for you to definitely come check it out.
Once I get my license, count me there. Me and my cat both are traveling.
There you go.
Great
Yay,
distances.
there you go.
And it's a beautiful cat, by the way.
Thank you. I'm glad that I picked her and she picked me.
Aww.
Aw.
Yeah, she's in the other room, so.
I think mine have kind of been making an appearance back and forth behind me. I keep hearing them every now and then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw one. I was like, what is that?
That's Cheetah.
Yeah, mine, last time I checked on her, she was on my bed, literally just paws up in the air, sleeping, so.
Adorable.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're really excited, about a lot of the different things that we're trying to do here with the jail, and trying to get a variety for everybody. As Dr. Sumner had said earlier, we've got a lot for, if you're not into the paranormal, we've got the daytime history and true crime. I know true crime is something that's really big right now, and we've got so much of that. And then, and interesting stories too. But then also, if you're into the paranormal, we've got that too. And so we offer the daytime tours, we offer the after dark tours, and the private paranormal investigations. Mm-hmm. If you're a ghost, a paranormal enthusiast and don't have a team, we offer public ghost hunts that are led by Dr. Sumner, sometimes both of us. And then we've also got the flashlight tours, which if you don't quite want to take that step into doing investigating, we take you through the jail and give the history and usually these are private tours of groups of 8 or less. And so we'll take you to the jail, sharing the history by flashlight, but also telling the ghost stories. So we've got a lot for everybody. And then we're looking at adding quite a few new things throughout 2022, and we've got a really, really exciting and interesting paranormal research study that we're getting ready to conduct. If Dr. Sumner wants to kind of go into that a little bit more, we'd be excited to share that.
Sure, absolutely. So to Miranda's point, we do want this. We want this jail to be really seen as a paranormal research location, and so to really advance that, we're doing something that we've never heard of before, and I'm really intrigued to see what the paranormal teams get when they come and experience this. So what we've done is we've got a former detective who worked in the jail. He worked in the county. He was there for decades working in law enforcement, and he has provided us with an item, and he has put this item in a container, and the items, we're not even sure how many are in this container, but it's items related to a crime. Somebody died. It's related to the jail as well. And so he is the only person that knows the contents of the container. And so what we're going to do is we're allowing paranormal investigators to sit with the container. They can conduct experiments, dowsing rods, ovulists, medium sessions, whatever you want to do with this container in order to see if the spirits of the jail will reveal the content, will reveal a name, a date, what the crime was, how it's associated with the jail. So what we're going to do is we're really trying to eliminate the bias from this as well. So when you go and you sit with this item, you can sit with it for as long as you want during your investigation time, but you're not allowed to record it on audio or video. What you're going to do is when you're in the room with the item, you're going to write down your experiences, what you're feeling, what you're hearing, what you're sensing, if the ovilus said anything, if your dowsing rods did anything. But again, you're not allowed to record it. You're going to write it all down. You're going to put it in a sealed envelope with your team's name on it, and you're going to put it in a lockbox that we don't have control over. The detective will have the key to the lockbox. And so in about 3 to 4 months, we're going to sit with the detective, and he is going to open the box, and we're going to start going through the envelopes to see if any of those teams picked up on anything related to the item. And so again, it eliminates the bias from all of it. So teams will not be allowed to talk about, after they conduct their investigation with it, they're not going to be allowed to talk about it. They're going to sign a non-disclosure. So we don't want anybody influenced by other teams, by what they think they got, by anything that we're saying. And it's really the first case that we've seen where all bias is eliminated from this. And it's really going to be interesting to see if the jail or the spirits in the jail will talk to us with regard to the contents of this box.
That sounds really cool. Like, personally.
Yeah.
Well, we're really excited about it because, as Dr. Sumner said, we've not seen anything else like this. Because there's so much that it could be, because again, so many people, so many stories that have come through. We're not even releasing the detective and who he was, so that anybody, again, we're trying to cut out everything so that people can't research. We don't even want to know, So yeah, we're trying to cut all of that out and really make it a true, control the environment and really make it a true case study and see what the jail will tell us. I mean, we've been trying to figure out the best, and we're able to communicate that to us as to where the best place to put it would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, personally, I would do that. That seems amazing.
Yeah, it is. It really is, like I said, something that's different, that we've never heard of. And even if you're not part of a team, like say you're an individual who has psychic abilities, or you're a medium and have those abilities, we're going to have mini sessions. So you don't even need to book a full paranormal investigation. You can come for an hour, even during the day, and sit with this item for an hour or 2 hours, whatever you want to do. And you don't have to even be part of a team to do this. Again, everybody will be required to sign this non-disclosure that they won't talk about it or anything that was revealed to them until we make the reveal of how this is going to end. But it's going to be something, like I said, that's going to be very different, and we're super excited by it.
Yeah, and we'll have that page up on the website the first part of the week, to where, if you're a team, you do that during, or you opt as to whether you're going to do that during your actual investigation. For the mini sessions that Dr. Sumner talked about, those are going to be by appointment only. And so it'll have a number and the information to call us if you want to schedule your hour-long or 2-hour-long, whatever, session with the item. So we'll have all that information up on the website under its own page.
Mm-hmm. And then where can people find you and the website?
So the best place to locate us, we have a really cool website. We take the you book your investigation online. We also have all of our different events and everything up there. The website is www.historicscottcojail.com. County is abbreviated to CO. And then on the Facebook, it's under Historic Scott County, so under Instagram, Historic Scott County Jail as well. Don't look for Scott County Jail, because that's our actual open jailhouse there. We have had some people go there and also tag themselves there. You are tagging the working jail system there. So yeah, always look under Historic Scott County Jail.
Honestly, I would do that by accident.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I would do that 100%.
Yeah, we've had teams
You wouldn't
do
be
that.
alone.
We've had teams do that. We're why are they tagging themselves at the current jail?
But we're really excited because we have a lot of really interesting events and stuff that's going to be coming up starting in February and March, and really excited some themed events around different holidays that's coming up, with Valentine's Day here in February, and then also with Women's History Month in March. So we'll be having all those listing of events and everything coming up very, very soon that people can go and book. But we're trying to make everything essentially electronic, so it's information is out there and everything can kind of a self-service sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. How you're gonna have like events for holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We did it at Christmas. and it ended up being a great Christmas. We kind of, since we had opened in September, we were a little bit behind the 8 ball there, trying to get everything set up and ready. October was great with all the paranormal investigations. But at the time, we had been open for 17 weeks, and we had 16 paranormal investigation teams, which we thought was really good. We were averaging at the very least a team a week, but there were some weekends, a team a weekend. There were some weekends we had 3 teams on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, and we're anticipating dates to really book up here for 2022 really, really soon. We've been gotten off to a good jump start on that already. And but yeah, at Christmas time we had a very cool ghost of the past this Christmas, and we took a walk around the town of Huntsville, talked about some of the history and the stories from Huntsville itself, and kind of walk through the Christmas lights, because they did an amazing job decorating for Christmas, walk through all of that, and then it ended with a tour of the historic jail. So it was about a 2-hour walk, and a lot of people really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that seems really cool. Do you think that the spirits like that?
I think so. Again, I think the fact that we're highlighting them, we're highlighting the jail, we're highlighting the county, it's really interesting to explain, but we do think that they're responsive to what we're doing. There are some days where, we'll go in and we're by ourselves and we don't really have a group coming in for a couple of days. And you can feel that the spirits are kind of like, where'd you go? Why isn't anybody here talking to us? Why aren't you coming up and spending some more time on the 3rd floor and speaking with us and such? So I do think that they're very responsive to the enthusiasm of visitors, of paranormal investigators that go in and really try to talk about them and their story and the building itself. So yeah, to your point, I do think that they're very responsive to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's really nice that they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we're there for many, many hours. We're there all day, and sometimes we're there 16 to 18 hours, depending on if we have events in the evening and such. And so it's nothing to be sitting there and see something out of the corner of your eye, to hear something going on the other floors. I mean, there's been times I know that I've been there, and then there's been times that Dr. Sumner's been there, and she's shared stories with me that, it sounds like somebody's, having a fight up on one of the upper levels or tearing something off the walls. It's not an uncommon thing for that to happen. I mean, we've even started on the flashlight tours wearing body cameras because they've been so active, and we only do one little small session during the flashlight tours, and they're not active paranormal investigations or ghost hunts. But yeah, we've had a lot of activity at that point.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just like, just taking it all in.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to have us on, let us share what we're doing, because for both of us being paranormal investigators with our own team and doing this, this has been something that's been a huge learning experience for both of us to come together and create this business and go step into this role of location owners. And so just getting the word out, that's been probably the biggest hurdle for us, getting the word out that we're open, getting the word out that we're inviting people to do these investigations. So we really appreciate all you do, Madison, for helping us get the word out and letting us take the time to share what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing that. Like, this is awesome.
We would have been actually at the jail tonight. That was the original plan, was to be at the jail, but that area is getting hit pretty hard by that winter storm that's coming through. So we actually had to close the museum today and tomorrow. So we weren't able to be at the museum tonight for this live show.
It's okay. That's what part 2s are for, everyone.
That's right.
Way to sell it, Madison. Nice job.
Love it.
I got you guys. I got you.
Love it. We will definitely do that.
Keep your eyes out for part 2, everyone. What's a good cliffhanger that we could just like leave off on, like at the end of the show? Like, what would be like a really good one?
Yeah, well, we'll just come back in the next couple of months and kind of tell you, how this experiment has ended and kind of the results of those findings. So if you're a paranormal investigation team, go ahead and book your dates, and you can sit with the item that we have or the container that we have, and really take part in this very true paranormal research study. So go ahead and get those dates booked so you can take advantage of that, and we'll come back here on Madison's show to reveal our findings.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
There you go. And if you are a lover of true crime and want with other or someone you like, events that we've got planned, and go on and check out some of those. And like I said, we'll be back to kind of talk about some of our findings from this experiment.
Very well said. All right. So, about the Shadow Man, do you think it's just one of them, or was it like multiple?
For me, I actually think there's one probably dominant one that we've just been seeing multiple times. It's just because obviously it's a shadow figure. We've seen it mostly, for me anyway, it's been on the second floor. I think we're seeing the same phenomena. Like I said, if you go and watch the video from RKB Paranormal, it's very telling because you can see it very quickly, even though it's in slow motion. You can see the shadow figure really quickly run through the alcove, and then this arm pushing this picture off the wall. And so I think for me anyway, it's one shadow figure. I don't know if it just pops up to the third floor every now and then, but that's just me personally. I think there's one.
I tend to think that there may be a few multiples, just because it may be a different way of being able to manifest, just because of the intelligence of a lot of these spirits that are there in the jail. I definitely think that there is a shadow figure that primarily hangs out on the second floor. And, another show for another time, I kind of have my theories on who this may be. But just because of some of the disembodied voices and stuff that we've captured there. And that's another thing too. This place has some of the most disembodied voices that I've ever heard. There's times we'll be up on the third floor and we'll hear somebody physically talking on the second or the first floor. In fact, earlier this week, let's see, today is Sunday. On Friday, I was talking to Dr. Sumner because I was not working that day, and she was going up to the third floor, and she heard two people having a conversation up on the third floor. The last tour that I did just after between Christmas and New Year's, people were hearing voices. They were hearing two people on the stairwell having a conversation. So I tend to think that there might be multiple, just because of some of the things that they've experienced on the third floor, and just by how intelligent it may just be another way of manifesting. But there's definitely one that does that, and he seems to in certain circumstances not really mind being seen. So because a lot of people have reported we have seen it, and to have captured, for RKB to have captured that on film, it was a pretty phenomenal sequence of events that happened that we couldn't debunk, and we tried for quite some time that night, and then also the next morning. So shadow figures, disembodied voices, as of late, light anomalies on the third floor. In the women's cell, people have been seeing light anomalies, and then we've also seen over in one of the front cell blocks, we've seen some shadow movement that we've not really been able to explain. So it's a really neat thing that people have been experiencing, and then also just the words that people have been getting, the EVPs and the disembodied voices, is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. Nice cat.
Yeah. He wants to be seen.
Well, you are seen, buddy. You are seen. But yeah, I think that's really cool what you guys are doing and how you're doing it. And yeah,
Well, thank you.
that's just me.
Well, thank you. And we know you're quite the seasoned investigator for such a young lady, and so that getting your seal of approval and everything that really means a lot. So thank you, Maddie.
Well, shucks. Thanks, guys. Yeah, you guys will always have my approval, so don't worry. Like I said, it's just really cool what you guys are doing and the approach that you're taking, and I just really like it,
Well, thank you.
I'm trying to come up with a question, just all right. So what's I don't even what's the funniest thing that's happened there, in your opinion?
Well, I'm not sure if it's funny per se. I mean, we get a chuckle out of it when we talk about it. But when we first started this endeavor, we had signed our lease actually in July with the town of Huntsville. So we got the keys pretty early in the process. So we were there cleaning up before we opened. So we had all these cleaning supplies up on the second floor on this table in the second floor kitchen. And Miranda is meticulous about cleaning. I mean, it's kind of crazy. But so there's this structure on the second floor that's the remnants of a dumbwaiter system that would take the food through each of the floors, right? So it's sealed off now, but the structure is still there. So Miranda had positioned herself underneath the lip of one of these things with the shop vac, and she was vacuuming up underneath there, and a razor blade that had been taped underneath the lip of this thing had fallen out. So it's essentially like contraband, right? That had been taped up under there that nobody knew about. So it fell down, and I wasn't there at the time. So she called me and said, "You're not going to believe this. I just found this razor blade. It was taped under the lip of this thing." And I said, "Well, just put it on the table there in the kitchen. And when I come in, I want to take a look at it because this is pretty cool." And so I get to the jail and I go upstairs and there's no razor blade on the table. So I yelled down to Miranda, I'm like, "Where's the razor blade?" And she yelled up, "It's on the table." And I said, "There is no razor blade on this table." And so she comes up and she's like, "I set it right here. And the razor blade is gone. I've never physically seen it yet." And so the razor blade is completely gone. It went missing. And then about a day later, we went to Ace Hardware to buy some supplies, and we bought a pair of red handled scissors. And so same thing, we set it, because that's where all of our cleaning supplies were. We set it on that second floor table. And when we came in the next day, I said, "Well, I'm going to run up and grab the scissors." And the scissors were gone. The red-handled scissors that we paid for, completely gone. We've not seen them since the day we bought them and put them on that table. And we were telling that story to one of the investigative teams, and they actually in their EVP session asked the question, "What are the owners of this building missing?" And they got the word scissors. And so I think that's pretty interesting. But I don't know if I'd call that funny, but to us it's pretty. To us it's humorous because, one, we want our scissors back. And two, I'd love to see the razor blade, but we paid almost $3 for those scissors. So,
yeah, and kind of real about it is, so when we do the flashlight tours, we allow members of that go and investigate with or go through the tour to carry K2 meters. And so when we're in the kitchen in there telling that story, the K2 meters start going off. The last 3 flashlight tours we've done, they would start going off, and as we're telling it, it's kind of flicking from green to red real quick in almost like a laughing motion. And so we'll ask, "Are you laughing?" And so they'll start going off. So it's funny because, I mean, it's anything that we have that's sharp. I mean, it continued, this spree of things missing continued 2 more times, once with a paint scraper. And that was when I finally put my foot down and I'm like, "Would you quit taking our tools? We're trying to fix this place up. Can you just give me my paint scraper back?" Found it up on the 3rd floor in the middle of the room, in the middle of the hallway. Hadn't even been up there that day. And then the 4th, and we've still yet to find this, was a sheet of 11 by 14 glass. Yeah. And we were going in, and so essentially everything with the museum, other than the people that donate and loan items to us, Christy and I have put this together. And so Christy was painting frames and I was framing the items, and she had this nice little system of when she would paint the frame, she had the glass and the backing sitting together and then the painted frame. And so she was able, once they dried, to just give me all 3 pieces. I would frame the items and then we'd hang it up. And we had probably a stack of like 10 or 12 at least.
Yeah, at least a couple dozen, yeah.
Yeah, and all of a sudden we're missing one 11 by 14 sheet of glass. We have cleaned that place through and through, and we've not been able to. I mean, I don't know how a sheet just goes missing, but that's been the last sharp item that we've found. So they definitely. I'm hoping that one day, either a team or ourselves, that we're going to go and we're going to find these items, in some weird random place. But they definitely like to take our sharp items.
Yeah.
Which is a little disturbing, but funny too,
Yeah. Like, that's quite funny. Like, just to me, just like, no, you're not allowed to have this. No, it's contraband. Silly.
Yeah, and we've got quite the display of contraband items in the museum. Probably one of the largest displays that myself personally has seen at any of the different jail museums. And so, some of these different shanks have been either taken from the jail or they've been taken from Brushy Mountain, Morgan County. A lot of we have quite the display of those, but thankfully they've not messed with those. We have those locked up in our display case.
Well, I'm starting to see the shadow man rounding the corner telling me that our time is almost over. So I'd really like to thank you both for coming on, chatting with me and my listeners. And just thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madison.
Yes, thank you, Maddie.
So now for all my listeners out there, I'd really like to say thank you for being with me tonight. My next show will be February 6th with Melody Knapp, if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I slaughtered the name. As my very special guest from Ghost Finders. Make sure if you're not following me, give me a follow at Madison Paranormal Investigation on Facebook and Maddie_Paranormal Investigation on Instagram. And for the cliffhanger, I'm just going to say, will they find the razor? Will they find those scissors? Find out in part 2. Anyway, so for tonight, peace, love, and happiness, and most of all, be spoopy, everyone.